Welcome back to Monza for qualifying 2 in round 6 of the International GTOpen in 2023. Conditions have certainly improved since yesterday's race, where it started out in the deluge that we had here at Monza yesterday, and plenty of cars ending up switching over to slick tyres by the end of the race. But today it's a completely different story, as the pit lane has burst into life. The fast lane and the pit lane are open, and we have cars out on track for Q2 to determine the grid for today's 60-minute encounter this afternoon. My name is Chris Stevens, alongside me George Morgan. And George, I think we've just about recovered from yesterday's very dramatic race.
There was lots to talk about, Chris. I think from start to finish we witnessed drama. Of course, the weather obviously kicked us off with certainly hellacious showers, and this is very much the story. We just saw the two Lamborghini cars, and they very much provided the entertainment, some good, some bad. This car was involved as well. Karel Basch and Marcin Jedlinski, who were, of course, very much a highlight in what can only be described as a sensational qualifying performance. Karel Basch just outside the top time, could only accomplish second fastest, but it was a tremendous attempt from Maximilian Paul in qualifying that would land them pole position once again. And then heading into the race, Paul managed to fight back after Karel Basch, of course, stole the race lead away from him and then took it right back away. And then Pierre-Louis Chauvet would then take it back after an almighty scrap with James Wallace, who, I have to tell you, one of the most dramatically phenomenal performances without the get-speed performance. James Wallace's stern defence, and you've got to give Aaron Walker for the great start as well.
Yes, absolutely. So we talked about, some cars going to slicks. I think the majority of teams did, and that was the right way to go, but the Get-Speed crew opted for the wets, and that's how he was able to repass Chauvet in the wetter sections of the track, i.e. at the first chicane, and it made for an enthralling battle. And yes, the Get-Speed crew coming away with their first podium of the season. James Wallace on debut in the championship on the podium as well, and Aaron Walker in only his third race as well up on the podium. It was a fantastically dramatic affair, but everything is reset in terms of the order, not so much in terms of the championship, because that car, the East Talent Audi at the head of this three-car field, is suddenly back in championship contention after Christopher Haase and Simon Riker finished second, while the top two in the championship, the Motorpark pairing of Diego Menchaca and his new teammate Thomas Neubauer, and the Optimum pairing of Sam Dehaan and Charlie Fagg, just scraped into the points because they made the wrong call. They stuck with the wet tyres.
They did, and do you know what? The championship complexion now looks outrageous. We usually come into Monza and it tends to be a decisive round, but we've got to the point now where the championship fight has just become even more convoluted. We've got the top two teams now in this fight. The Motorpark partnership now of Diego Menchaca and Thomas Neubauer. Of course, Neubauer not necessarily in the championship fight, but he's trying to aid his colleague and teammate. That, of course, that being Diego Menchaca. And then you have the combination of Fagg and Sam Dehaan. Zero differential between the two cars. They are currently sat on level points right now, with East Talent now within 5 points. You've got three combinations that are now in with a chance of winning this year's championship.
Running three different types of car as well. We've got McLaren, Mercedes and Audi in there as well. Of course, the reason Neubauer is not in the title fight is because Marcos Seibert has been in that car alongside Menchaca throughout the entire season. But these last two rounds clash with the final two rounds of the European Le Mans Series, which Seibert is also leading that championship at the moment with Cool Racing, so he's had to prioritise the LMP3 campaign, and so Neubauer has come in to help Motorpark and Menchaca seal, hopefully, for them, the championship in what is the team's first proper GT3 campaign. First lap time starting to come in. It's currently Christopher Haase with a 1:48.9. That is the pace setter at the moment, but still a little way off the pace we were seeing in qualifying yesterday, so still a long way to go. Only 5 minutes into this session at the moment. Now I'm curious to see what Lewis Proctor can do here in the Greystone GT McLaren. He was, for me, the star of qualifying in the Red Bull Ring last time out, where he put it on the second row of the grid and very clearly on Pro-Am pole as well. The Greystone team finding massive improvements in their performance in recent races. And now what can Christopher Haase do? This is a big opportunity for the East Talent team. Of course,
they could take the championship lead.
They could.
This race.
They absolutely could. But we're told maybe the Audi is not the best car for this type of track. The Audi is one of a few cars that has been given a bit of extra engine performance for this weekend in the BOP, but a bit of additional weight to sort of compensate for it. It's the Audi, the Merc, and the Ferrari 296 as well, although the Ferrari's performance is actually coming through with extra turbo boost, because it's a twin-turbo V6 in that car, just to try and level things out. Of course, balance of performance has to adjust race on race depending on the configuration of circuit. Monza very much dominated by the straights, so obviously if we can equalize the straight line performance, then it means that all the cars in theory should be able to set identical lap time. So Christopher Haase on his way here, that was not an improvement for him. David Fuminelli has gone to the top of the times in the meanwhile on a 47.457, and they were on the podium yesterday, that Kessel pairing of Fuminelli and Frédéric Jousset in the number 11 car, second in the Pro-Am standings, and a very good day for them yesterday. This is Rhys Barr in the SBS Performance Mercedes. I'm told no tension between him and Mikael Pitamba, despite South Africa and Ireland playing each other in the Rugby World Cup last night, and Ireland coming out on top, and Rhys Barr almost coming out on top on that lap with second fastest.
Yeah, and achieved purple in the second sector as well. Christopher Haase was purple in the first sector on his previous run, but did not follow it through coming in towards the final sector. In fact, Giorgio Sergio was flashing him with the headlights, and now I was actually going to talk about James Wallace, because he was purple in the second sector, but it's all come away here at this point, heading out of Ascari. There's no real visible damage that I could see necessarily,
apart from
some
a little scrape on the front there. So what's he done at Ascari?
He's clearly done something with the paintwork, because it's still intact there. Oh, wowee. And that is a
he has
display of
crushed the barrier there.
Yeah, so a little bit of green that he's managed to rub off the side barrier onto the front of his car. A little bit of smoking going on there as well.
Yes,
interesting.
There was a bit of bodywork that came up. I imagine he'll head back to the pits to try and get that sorted. But James Wallace there, it's a very young pairing aboard that number 6 Get Speed car now. Two 17-year-old Brits, very early stages of their GT racing career. In fact, James Wallace only made his GT3 debut earlier this year in the British GT Championship. There he is back in the pits. Graduated from GT4 racing there, and there we can see, yes, just on the front grille, a bit of damage,
bit of bodywork
there as well. So I'm sure there will be some slight performance deficit there. Not an ideal start to his qualifying for sure.
No, not ideal, and the crew there are going to see if they can help him out. Incidentally, going back to Oregon's performance yesterday in qualifying, as David Fuminelli goes fastest of anybody in the first sector, they've now levelled up the pole position numbers for this season with the East Talent Audi team, who came into the weekend with 3 poles, running wide David Fuminelli. Not ideal at all. A new-looking livery as well, with a very white-dominated bonnet, with the red strip down the middle. And certainly I'd imagine losing a bit of time in the middle sector as a result of running out wide. And you can see now Charlie Fagg just moving ahead of him as he now ploughs through the Ascari section. But I'm sure David Fuminelli will be back at it. Very, very good qualifier, and a race winner here as well in Euro Formula. Actually took the race wins here in the past, just overextending though around Lesmo 2. Whilst it wasn't necessarily an aggressive moment off track, at the same time, you never want to really run too far wide or into the gravel, as it can claim you.
Yes, that 20% additional aerodynamic downforce that the Ferrari 296 has played a role there, I'm sure. It was very stable through the gravel, but still a less than optimal line there for David Fuminelli, who's still provisionally top of the standings at the moment, and almost half a second clear of Charlie Fagg, who's just gone second fastest on that lap.
Yeah, certainly has indeed. James Wallace, who went purple in the second sector last time out, still in the pits and waiting to come out. Fuminelli looking to perhaps put the rocket boosters on again this time. Remember, of course, qualifying pole in our first round of the championship. Alongside that of Frédéric Jousset, has not been on the front row of the grid since, but might choose to perhaps usher in yet another another stellar lap this time around at the Temple of Speed. He's got a little bit of traffic ahead of him, still the Optimum Motorsport McLaren Charlie Fagg just ahead. Pietro Pirolini after his dramatic moment yesterday here. In fact, at this very section of circuit where Fuminelli's coming through, obviously missed the chicane altogether, just outbraked himself after rubbing onto the grass, losing the car, ending up in the barriers, and we all heard his reaction to that from his cockpit. He's now gone 7th fastest here at this point. Adamo Seca 6th fastest. Giorgio Sunaghiotto. Diego Menchaca now goes 5th fastest ahead of Christopher Haase. Still no one usurping that of David Fuminelli, who's out on top. But 61 thousandths off in the first sector, off his best time. He's going to come through the Sector 2, Sector 3 checkpoint this time around. And again, the traffic, I think, hindering him just that little bit. He's nearly 2.5 tenths out on where he needs to be. Charlie Fagg is now down to 3rd because Pierre-Louis Chauvet comes back towards the front row with a 2nd fastest lap time for the Lamborghini. Could it be the case they can go fastest, not just in one session this weekend, but 2?
Certainly could well be. They've been on just electric form, particularly in qualifying of late. They took their 4th win of the season yesterday, and were it not for a pretty tumultuous first couple of rounds in the championship, they would be well in this championship fight. Charlie Fagg there had to back out of that last lap. I think he got caught up behind Stanislav Jedlinski in the Olymp Ferrari, and Fuminelli not able to improve on that last lap either. Yannick Mettler now goes 3rd fastest. Agostini up to 2nd as well in the AF Corsa Ferrari. Chauvet setting a very good pace in the first sector. It is a personal best for sure. And now, look at this. Is he going to get held up here behind the street car? Going to get a bit of a slipstream from the other Olymp car as well. Milos Pavlovic as well, setting a good pace in the Benaldi Lamborghini with a good first sector as well. So the timing screaming absolutely lit up at the moment. Pierre-Louis Chauvet still on a time good enough to usurp David Fuminelli at the front of the field. But there's, yes, quite a lot of traffic heading down towards the Parabolica at the moment, and Pavlovic still setting the pace in the middle sector as well. So that Benaldi Lamborghini absolutely flying, and whoa, that was a big swapper there for Pierre-Louis Chauvet coming out of the final corner. Has that cost him any momentum as he comes across the timing beam now and does still go fastest with a purple final sector? It's a 1:46.577, but here comes Pavlovic, 2nd fastest, some 0.3 of a second down in the end, and that just shows you how good that final sector from Chauvet was.
Yeah, and only just barely bumping into the 1:46s for Pavlovic, so 2 cars occupying that space on the timing screen right now. Obviously Fuminelli now down to 3rd, Agostini now 4th at this point as well. Yannick Mettler, we alluded to him, of course, making it to 4th place. He's now down to 5th as a result. Charlie Fagg down to 6th, and Fagg, though, back to 5th as he jumps Yannick Mettler at this point. And a quick reminder, as you can see from the top of your screen, the category colour codes, folks. Red on the left-hand side of the drivers' names is Pro, Pro-Am being blue, and Am class being green. As we now see the cars make their way through the Lesmo section now. Pierre-Louis Chauvet looking to muster in perhaps an improvement, has lost out in that first sector a little bit off his best time. Gravel. And again, skimming in the gravel, 53 thousandths down in the first sector already. We'll wait until the end of the Seraglio straight to see whether he's lost a dramatic amount off the back heading into sector 3 out of sector 2. Oh, he's actually gained a little bit of time. He's only 6 thousandths outside now in comparison to the 53 that he was before. Improving already with a personal best in sector 2. A final run now here in the final sector to yet notch together another stellar lap and perhaps an improvement on what he had already set. Pavlovic, remember, 3.5 tenths behind. Diego Menchaca going 9th fastest as Steve Jans drops to 10th. Christopher Haase now back out on track. He's on an out lap and he's currently 11th fastest. Keep your eyes peeled on that East Talent Audi, but Pierre-Louis Chauvet is going to cross the line now. Has he found improvements? No, back into the pit lane. He's going to get the preparation in, I think. A few mistakes creeping in. It's time to reset, Chris.
Yep, in the pit lane, probably a fresh set of boots on the car as well. Of course, they only wanted to use one set yesterday and left it very, very late because Bash, with like 10 minutes left in the session, put it on provisional pole, and so kind of forced Oregon's hand a little bit in having to come out and use another set of tyres to try and take pole position back again, which of course they did. And we're in a kind of similar situation at the moment where they're on provisional pole at the moment, halfway through the session, with a bit of an advantage at the moment. This is Agostini, who has abandoned a good lap here in the 51 AF Corsa Ferrari. Of course, that was Victor in Red Bull Ring last time out, the first victory in the GTOpen for the Ferrari 296, and it looks like he's coming into the pits as well. Now, what's gone on here between Lewis Proctor and Stanislav Jedlinski? Bit of miscommunication down at Lesmo 2. And did they just about avoid contact? I think they just about did.
Yeah, very well managed by Lewis Proctor, and you could just see there.
Is that me, or is his steering sort of right hand down a little bit? It might be the angle of the camera, but it looked like it was right hand down.
Well, it looked like he was okay coming out of Lesmo too, so hopefully he should be okay. James Wallace finding improvements as well off his personal best, of course, sustaining that little bump into the barrier earlier on the outset of Ascari. No such issue this time around, of course, for the GT Cup 3-time race winner in the UK. And now looking to try and notch together yet another stellar time. Of course, remember, he was responsible for that outrageous defence in yesterday's race against that of Pierre-Louis Chauvet, and also when he came together with that of Pietro Pirolini. It was a double Oregon affair with this James Wallace-driven Get Speed Performance Mercedes, who's now making his way up towards the line. Currently 12th fastest, but certainly these improvements you'd imagine would notch together something good. It certainly does. Halves the deficit. He's down to 6th fastest now, and finding himself now only just over 0.8 of a second in behind Pierre-Louis Chauvet's time. But take a look, the top 4 all in the pits getting ready for one last chance to dance, no less. 13 minutes and 45 still to go. It's all to play for, Chris.
Certainly is. Reece Barr's done a good first sector. Now we've got car 133 under investigation for crossing the white line at pit exit. That is not the first time we've seen that so far this season across a few of the series that are racing here. I believe that would be Murat Çağrıoğlu, who is celebrating his 60th birthday today. It would not be a welcome birthday gift if he were to receive a penalty for that. But Reece Barr here, still on a good lap with a personal best in the middle sector as well, catching a cheeky little slipstream off of Marco Polcini's AF Corsa Ferrari, and Reece Barr, the Irishman, rounds that final corner. Now, this is the car that took its first podium at Red Bull Ring last time out as well, and we'll see as he gets across the line, puts it on the second row. A very nice lap there for Reece Barr.
Very nice lap, 3rd fastest, and of course caught up with Reece Barr after achieving their first podium, incidentally, back at Red Bull Ring last time out, and they were jubilant with that fact. Of course, a young driver pairing, Mikhail Petamba, unfortunately not donning the purple hair like he was last time out. We were very disappointed by that, weren't we, Chris?
Yes, absolutely, and clearly it was the purple hair that was doing well, because they were on the podium in Red Bull Ring.
Well, Haas are up to 7th now. He's jumped up, and yes, I mean, we thought it was a pathetic excuse from Mikhail Petamba, saying that there's no purple hair dye in Italy, which...
Yes, clearly not in the whole country. Couldn't find any purple hair dye. As a poor excuse. Actually, Reece Barr was on the same flight as us back from Spielberg as well. And carrying the 3rd place trophy he had as well, which attracted quite a bit of attention from the general public as well.
We had to stop for photos a few times.
We did, actually. Well, not least from me as well. I wanted to get a shot of that for the Instagram story, of course. So Reece Barr on his way here, not improving on this lap. By the looks of it, plenty of cars now sitting in pit lane with just under 12 minutes to go. So I think just building up to a one last gasp effort in the final few minutes of qualifying. Reece Barr, nice improvement in the middle sector on that lap. It was a personal best, and now we're going to get a little slipstream here from the 61 AF Corsa Ferrari, the Jean-Claude Sarda and Conrad Grunwald combination that took the AM victory yesterday. Reece Barr here, once again, powering out of the Parabolica and onto the front straight. He will definitely get a tow there from the Ferrari ahead of him. Can he improve on that last lap? Yes, now puts it on the front row and gets to within a 10th of Pierre-Louis Chauvet's provisional pole time. And heading back out on track here is Lewis Proctor.
Yeah, we're just seeing Reece Barr then plough on ahead, and obviously still chasing the white AF Corsa Ferrari that still sits out in front, and Lewis Proctor is going to look to try and marshal in yet another improvement himself. Christopher Haas, though, going 5th fastest, finding improvements already in the Audi. I tell you what, fifth fastest, they won't be too disappointed with that, it has to be said, given the fact that it places them there and amongst it on the third row of the grid. Plenty of cars still in the pit lane, but others coming out. Of course, we saw the Proctors come out as well. Steve Jans is also out on track and looking to improve, but a purple first sector as well. Just looking on my screen, I think that's for Heiko Neumann, who has found 33.529. Now, I do wonder whether there was perhaps a cutting involved through the first chicane, not quite sure, but that is a stellar opening sector.
Yes. That car was very good yesterday in qualifying with Timo Rumpfkarl at the wheel as well. It was on pole position and 5th overall as well. Stunning pace in that car at the moment. Of course, the important thing for Haase as well, going 5th fastest at the moment, that puts him ahead of both Fag and Menchaca, his title rivals, and that's probably the reference point that they're looking at the moment, as we're still on board here with Lewis Proctor on his build lap towards the flying lap in that McLaren 720S. Warming up the brakes, warming up the tyres. Lewis Proctor was certainly sensational in Red Bull Ring. It was so unfortunate it didn't quite go their way in the race, but definitely a Pro-Am pairing that's starting to find its feet in that category. Get a little glimpse there of the 786 Get Speed Mercedes as well. That was very unfortunate in the AM battle yesterday and retired. This is Christopher Haase on another good lap here, setting green sector times as he comes across the line here aboard that East Talent Audi, the Audi Works driver, putting his mark on this championship, but can't improve in the end and stays 5th fastest.
Was actually faster in the first sector than Rhys Barr was on his previous best lap. So a really, really good showing here from the East Talent Audi. Despite not being necessarily on the front row, this is something to build off, and especially with Christopher Haase at the wheel for the initial stint, they have a great chance to set the tone for the start of the race. And if they're allowed to let loose, of course, this could be a great chance for them to take the lead of the championship with only 5 points behind that of Chauvet and Paul, and also that of Menchaca as well. Steve Jans goes 11th fastest, dispatching Menchaca down to 12th. So that's the Pro-Am car now, up to Pro-Am 5th on the board. Yannick Mettler having a better run today than what he had yesterday. They were very disappointed with the showing afterwards. Of course, spoke to Dexter Muller and Yannick Mettler this morning. They're looking for a change of fortune, and certainly if Yannick continues, top 10 for now. It could be a little more later on. Let's wait and see, as now we see Haase exit out of the second Lesmo. Serralio straight now for the Audi R8 LMS. He's got an Oregon Lamborghini that's currently chasing him too, heading down the straight. Giorgio Sergio goes 12th fastest as well at this point, also dispatching Diego Menchaca. Heiko Neumann now 18th fastest ahead of Nick Moss, as now we see Haase finding he's now only 74 thousandths outside of the top time, but purple showing on our timing screen right now, so a personal best, and looking really strong here at this point, taking a really tight line in towards the Kerber Alboreto. He'll judder out to the left-hand side to then cut in towards the right hand, a little twist of the wheel as he now looks to certainly power this car through this final bend. A great chance for Haase to bring it home as Proctor goes 5th fastest ahead of Haase, but Haase, I'm sure, is going to look to strike back here in the final sector, goes 3rd fastest this time. Audi on the second row of the grid alongside Milos Pavlovic.
That's Lamborghini, Mercedes, Audi in the top 3 at the moment, and we see that Pierre-Louis Chauvet still sitting in the pit lane. But the sister car, the number 19, is out on track, and yeah, big work overnight to get that car fixed and ready for this race after Perellini's very late and dramatic spin and knock into the barriers at the very end of yesterday's race 1. James Wallace still improving here in that slightly cosmetically damaged, at the very least, to Get Speed Mercedes, although not so great in the middle sector there. Of course,
you would have thought Pirates only wear eye patches, wouldn't you? Let's be honest. That's an Oregon.
George.
That's an Oregon team thing. Let's be fair. No, I'm just playing.
That is awful. Charlie Fagg, in the meanwhile, has put it up on the second row of the grid ahead of Christopher Haase. So that's very close between two title rivals there, just a 10th between them. The outlier at the moment is Menchaca, who still sits in 12th place, but still just under 6 minutes for him to improve his time and position for race number 2. I thought that was him for a moment there, but that's the AM Motorpark car. All Carmot, Oregon, isn't it?
Very calm.
They seem like they know what they're doing.
Well, Chauvet has yet to come out, and I'm not sure whether they're going to send him out again as we ride on board, this time with Yannick Mettler. Of course, the SPS Performance Mercedes not doing too badly. Personal improvements in the first and second sector, and looking to perhaps jutter himself up from P10. And looking at the sector times, actually, this is looking pretty competitive. First sector was actually reasonably strong. Very early 34s. We've seen quite a few dip into the mid-33s, as we now see Yannick Mettler make his way up towards the line. This, no doubt, will surely send him higher. It does, 6th fastest, and Charlie Fagg, also, remember, championship leader, purple now in the second sector. He's 91 thousandths up. This could be a blistering display from the Red Zebra, who now makes his way down the long straight. I can tell you that David Fuminelli also doing the same things. He's got even faster at this point,
got
even
traffic,
though he's dropped down to 8th. And yes, he has got traffic. Fagg has got traffic as well here in 3rd place. Let's see where he ends up. But Fuminelli, look at this time now showing, can he sustain it though, given the amount of traffic out on track?
Yeah, he was definitely getting held up in the final corner there. Does still improve, but Fagg didn't get held up there by Menchaca. So he goes across the line now. Only second fastest, 23 thousandths of a second. Covers the top 2 at the moment, as Chauvet is back out on track now to try and improve that time. A 10th of a second covers the top 3. This is fantastic at the moment, George.
It is absolutely stellar, and already improvements for other drivers as well. Lewis Proctor finding time, but also finding time is Rhys Barr, a personal best in sector 1, and just on the cusp of breaking into the 33s himself. He's on a 34.002 and another personal best in the second sector at 36.089, faster than Charlie Fagg's last run by nearly 2/10. He's purple in that middle sector. He is nearly 2/10 up already off the others, and he's breaking past some of this traffic. Can he also sustain this? Could it be Rhys Barr setting the bar here towards the end of Q2? He's only got the small matter of a single corner left, and the Silver Arrows all dressed up here for a race here at Monza. Race 2 round the corner. Can he put it on top? Can he take pole? It's Rhys Barr. He does take the top spot here with 3 minutes and 20 to go, and 92 thousandths faster than Pierre-Louis Chauvet.
Absolutely brilliant. So Fuminelli had that time deleted. He's back down in 7th place now. Charlie Fagg was on a good lap there in the first sector, but he's lost time in the middle sector as well. So this might not be the lap for him. This is Pierre-Louis Chauvet back out on track now, and looking to reclaim that top spot in the final 3 minutes of qualifying here. This is the guy that has been pretty much the benchmark lately in qualifying, has taken 3 pole positions so far this season and has won 4 races. And he and Maximilian Paul on absolutely fine form. Can he make it back-to-back poles again here at Monza?
Well, I tell you what, this is the time. No time like the present for Pierre-Louis Chauvet. Exiting out to the Rogier chicane now. He's got Lesmo 1 and 2 to take. At this point, 33.833 in the first sector is a personal improvement and is faster than Rhys Barr in sector 1, and an almighty near enough 2/10 faster as well. The Pirate team that celebrated victory, but also dismay yesterday, would love to see their car up on the front row again, much to the delight, I'm sure, of Jerry Canavicio, the team boss, and Pier Giorgio Testa, who are obviously one of the most dynamic pairing of team bosses you'll ever see in motorsport, as now we see Chauvet heading in towards the Ascari chicane, still up on his time, still up on everybody's time. 92 thousandths now the difference between P2, or should I say between P1 right now, Rhys Barr, and Chauvet himself. 92 thousandths at this point. Can he find a little extra in the final sector? The Lamborghini all dressed up in the multicolored effects of the Oregon team, who flew the Pirate flag yesterday on the top step of the podium for this very partnership when Chauvet brought it home at the very depths here in race 1 here at Monza. Here comes now Pierre-Louis Chauvet, the Frenchman, now looking to take the top. Back again from Rhys Barr. He does by an almighty near enough, just over 1.5 tenths of a second. It's Chauvet and Oregon. They are currently on top. Can they hold on to pole by the end of qualifying?
Yeah, checkered flag still just over a minute away. There's still opportunities here for people to take it back. Christopher Haas has done a personal best in the middle sector as well, but Chauvet bringing it back on top for Oregon ahead of Rhys Barr. Charlie Fagg leading the championship battle there at the moment. And look at this, personal best again from Rhys Barr in the first sector, very tight indeed. We've got the clock on him, it's 0.05 of a second away from a time he needs to usurp Chauvet at the top of the times. Christopher Haase now third on the second row of the grid, ahead of his championship rival. But look at this, Rhys Barr getting held up here by the Olymp Ferrari. That is not going to be ideal at all, and this is going to be the last lap for him. So we'll see what kind of run he's got onto the straight here when he gets across the timing beam. He's lost half a second. That's not going to be enough to put him on pole position. Traffic not helping his cause there at all, and it looks like on this occasion SBS and Rhys Barr are going to have to settle for second.
Yeah, and I tell you what, despite their efforts, they got to be proud with what they've brought to the table. Take nothing away from Rhys Barr and Mikael Pitamba. They brought their best to the forefront yet again, and should it stay like this, they will at least be on the front row heading into the race this afternoon. But there are still cars out there and improving. David Fuminelli's already up on his time, as is looking for the down. Yannick Mettler lost time though in the middle sector. Steve Jans though a 34 flat, and also seeing improvements from Lewis Proctor, but losing out in the second sector. So we've got our eyes peeled now with the checkered flag raised. It's still Chauvet out on top. Proctor's coming to the pits, no improvements from him whatsoever. It looks pretty academic to me here, Chris.
Yeah, Fuminelli's lost time in that middle sector, so this isn't going to be the one. Disappointing qualifying, I'd say, there for Diego Menchaca. He's down in 13th, while his title rivals are starting 3rd and 4th on the second row of the grid. Unless he's got one last gasp effort in it here. He's in the 3rd sector at the moment. We'll see if he comes across the line. But most of the cars already back into the pits, and it's Milos Pavlovic who takes the Pro-Am honours there as well. Menchaca has got across the line, but he's only improved to 12th, over a second off the pace. Astonishing. Wow. But for these guys, the 63 crew, just going from strength to strength. Pole position once again.
Yeah, and this does make them the leader in terms of the number of pole positions they've obtained. That is their 4th pole position this season for Pierre-Louis Chauvet and Max Paul. They break away from Christopher Haase and Simon Riker's season record so far of 3. Of course, they took theirs consecutively between Spa, Hungaroring in race 1 and race 2. Similar deal with Pierre-Louis Chauvet and Max Paul, only this time Paul Ricard race 2, Red Bull Ring race 1, and now have taken pole in both race 1 and race 2 here at Monza. A stellar display and a great chance for them, perhaps, despite the handicaps they will be facing later on this afternoon, to perhaps still obtain a great result. Don't count them out by any means.
Absolutely. Well, of course, they came in with a fairly hefty handicap yesterday. It was 10 seconds. But I imagine it's going to be closer to 20.
20 this time, yeah.
Now, yes. Of course, the first person to congratulate Pierre-Louis Chauvet there was Rhys Barr. So this is the top 3 then. Christopher Haase, 3rd in the championship, lines up 3rd on the grid for race 2 in round 6 for the East Highland Audi. Rhys Barr, another sensational qualifying performance for him in the SBS Automotive Performance Mercedes. He lines up 2nd, the Irishman there. Riding on the waves of Ireland's victory in the Rugby World Cup yesterday. Pierre-Louis Chauvet puts it on pole position. It's a 2nd pole position of the weekend for the 63 crew. And here are the full results then.
Chauvet, pole position. You wanted your pole position as well.
Yeah, it was a...
Yep, so the full results then, it's Pierre-Louis Chauvet ahead of Rhys Barr and Christopher Haase. Charlie Fagg, the championship leader, starts in 4th place. Milos Pavlovic takes the Pro-Am honours for Benaldi, ahead of David Fuminelli, Yannick Mettler, Steve Jans and Lewis Proctor. That is a super tight Pro-Am battle there, with Riccardo Agostini completing the top 10, ahead of James Wallace on the podium yesterday. And the 2nd place in the championship, Diego Menchaca, lines up 12th. Conrad Grunwald, after victory in the AM class yesterday, on pole position again today, ahead of Giorgio Giotto and Adamo Seca, with Philip Barron in 16th. Pietro Parolini down in 17th. Giuseppe Cipriani in 18th. And Marcin Jedlinski. And then Heiko Neumann. Nick Moss on his return to the championship, 21st in the Optimum McLaren. Lauren De Meus, Gino Fulgioni, Marco Pulcini, Murat Chirodoroglu.
Pierre-Louis Chauvet,
the rest of the
pole
order.
position at Monza on Sunday. You really wanted the pole position.
Yeah, I really wanted it, and honestly the lap was really clean, so I'm really proud of it. And here in Italy, the country of my brown Lambo. It's amazing, so really happy about it.
Is it still feasible, you think, for the championship?
We are fighting every day for it, as I said in Red Bull Ring. Yesterday we won, pole position by Max. This morning my pole position. So now even with the handicap we will try to win, of course, and we push as much as we can for the championship.
Good. Un petit mot en français pour les copains, la famille.
Merci à tous les Français de me suivre, ça me fait vraiment plaisir. Et merci pour votre support, ça me donne toute l'énergie qu'il faut pour aller chercher toutes ces victoires et ces pôles. Merci à vous.
Bravo, à tout à l'heure.
Fantastic job once again from Oregon and the 63 crew. The championship is getting hotter and hotter. See what happens in the conclusion of round 6 at 1:30 local time. We'll see you then.